over the past year, we have worked in partnership with many to come up with a definition, a manifesto of what equity is. And so I simply wanted to read it because you've heard enough good conversation today. But I want to read it and invite you to think about how do you use it in the toughest moments of this work. Brother McAfee's questions were really questions of accountability. And those are questions that people who are not inside the process will always ask, should ask, and we should have an answer to them. And so when Angela talked about having goals for equity, we all have to be willing to expect that we will be held accountable. And so in that process, I'm going to read this manifesto and ask you to think about, as you take up your own personal journey in leadership, that you think about how do you hold this space so that we can do this work and ultimately achieve the environment that we want. Equity Manifesto. It begins by joining together, believing in the potency of inclusion and building from a common bond. It embraces complexity as calls for collaboration, accepting that our fates are inextricable. It recognizes local leaders as national leaders, nurturing the wisdom and creativity within every community as essential to solving the nation's problems. It demands honesty and forthrightness, calling out racism and oppression, both overt and systemic. It strives for the power to realize our goals while summoning the grace to sustain them. It requires that we understand the past without being trapped in it, embrace the present without being constrained by it, look to the future, guided by the hopes and courage of those who have fought before and beside us. This is equity, just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential, unlocking the promise of the nation by unleashing the promise in us all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our Equity Manifesto, and it's not for PolicyLink, it is for this work, it is for the field. It has come out of a lot of pain and suffering and hopes and aspirations, and we ask that you not change it, but try to live into it. The work right now is to not wordsmith anymore. It is to be accountable for delivering for the people who are left out. And so with that in mind, I'm going to invite Sarah up. You know, Sarah, I've been here a couple of times. I see the momentum from last year. I still see how much work we have to do. And the question was asked about what is the United Way going to do? And it is an important place for us to start because Sarah is on her own journey to figure out equity. So I'm going to start by asking a couple of questions so that she can begin to unpack what's going on with her own personal journey and what's going on with the United Way. I've watched you in action over the last couple of days, and you shared that you've been in your own personal journey around equity. So I wanted to start before we go into the organization with the person. And if you can share with us how you're thinking about equity, and really what are you struggling with? What are those places of vulnerability that you're experiencing?
I'm going to tell you a story, take a little step back about my United Way journey. I have a child who's now 27, his name is Michael, who has very significant disabilities, mental, physical. And I thought when I came into this United Way job that I had a pretty good handle on otherness because I have been on this incredible other journey with my Michael Caruso as an advocate, as sharing pain, sharing success each step of the way. And what has happened recently, and I think I have a pretty good size heart and came to United Way wanting to make a difference. Particularly in the last 3 or 4 months, I have learned and understood I have a lot to learn. And a long way to go, and I may never get there. We're all on a journey. But there is something going on that is so important in this community. And I've tried to listen. I've been in North Minneapolis. I've talked to leaders there. And I'm reading a book that I hope everyone in this room either has read or will read, called Beyond the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And it is written by an African-American man to his son. And what I have gotten from that book, which has been so powerful, it's been painful to read, that I had not understood, so this is the beginning of this next chapter, is the fear that this loving, wonderful, accomplished man has lived with his whole life because of his simply being an African-American man, the fear of policing, the fear of not being respected in a classroom, the fear for his son. And that, anyway, so this is my journey. I've got a lot to learn, and I hope I am on a deeper, bumpy, uncomfortable chapter right now, personally.
So thank you. And so while you're on this personal journey, you also have this incredible responsibility as a civic leader with tremendous resources that can be used to maintain status quo or to really move beyond things. So how are you holding the space of vulnerability and then stepping into your power around equity?
So in preparing for this day, I was reminded by staff of a lot of our accomplishments over the past 10 or 15 years in what we believe is making a real and accountable difference in many people's lives, including lives of color in early education and job training. But I'm not going to list those. I'm going to say that at United Way, board and staff are asking ourselves, why isn't it adding up to more? And what do we need to be doing as an organization, and more importantly, in collaboration with other funders, government agencies, and the broader community to make more of a difference faster, as though these are our children, because they are our children. And so we're beginning to think, and we're thrilled that the governor has doubled down on this, because it really needs to be all sectors in on this. We're really asking ourselves, again, we're not saying we're doing good stuff, it's going to make a difference at some point. We're saying we're doing good stuff, why isn't it making more of a difference? Where can we lean in and push harder?
And so when you talk about pushing harder, when you talk about equity, it sends shockwaves through organizations and systems. And so as you think about that right now, what has to change internally to live up to what you're seeing be described in the manifesto, what you've heard on the panel today, and what you heard Angela talk about? What are you thinking are some of the initial things that have to change? And then I saw some of this happen as you planned this session. Could you talk about some of the thinking and recalibration you had to do to even get to today to start modeling an equity example?
Well, I think to model an equity example, there's this, and I think this was your word, Michael, last night at dinner, this fine line, maybe uncomfortable line between listening and action. So I'm an action-oriented person. I'm proud that United Way tends to be quite a pragmatic, on-the-ground or oriented organization, taking funders' money, investing in really good programs. And I think at this point around equity, we have to really be careful not to move too fast, because maybe we have to invent whole new systems that are not, that are much more culturally competent, or re-embed that in current systems. Maybe we need to take on really hard issues, like what's going on at the school board, and why is North Minneapolis continuing to be so isolated? We haven't taken on talking to the Met Council. Maybe we should, who's tackling that kind of issue. So I think we need to, it can sound conflictual, but I think we need to listen much harder. The panel is a great example. We need to listen to younger people. We need to listen to Black Lives Matter. We need to listen to people who are experiencing this every day and make sure we're as close to it as possible. And then we need to perhaps broaden our collective action sort of group to make sure everybody's all in.
So thank you. One last question as we go, because as a convener and a powerful space that you hold, inevitably you are going to have to manage conflict. And so often, that's been a challenge for United Ways in this context around this issue. What advice, kind of going back to Craig, establishing some norms for how we join today, what advice or what would you like to ask this group to think about as you begin to wade into some very tough spaces? You know, you're on your own journey. The United Way, it's on its own journey. You're not going to always get this right. You know that in order to have progress, we've got to have some conflict ignited. And so anything you would like to share in final thoughts with how you would like this community to join you in this journey?
Well, this journey is not a popularity contest. And this journey is not about making all of the people happy all of the time, or even some of the people comfortable most of the time. And so I'll give you an example. We were talking about sort of these topics writ large at a United Way all-staff meeting. And one of the things Craig has put in place that I really appreciate is we do a little survey after each one of these meetings. We're about 110 staff, and then we have open-ended comments. And there were comments, and our staff who are here in the room who really did not like the way I talked about the issue. And I'm like, well, I read them all, and somebody came in and said, oh, Sarah, are you okay with that? I said, yes, I am, because I can learn and be better, and I'm not going to make all our staff happy with my approach all the time, which doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong and vice versa. But you have to get in there, you have to be comfortable with conflict, and you have to find the best ideas, the most high-quality coalitions, the most inclusive coalitions, and move forward. And maybe not even every step forward is going to be the right one, but you got to keep moving forward and have your eye on the prize, which is doing smart things as fast as possible for the people that matter in this community. And that's all people, not just some people.
Well, thank you. We're going to stop here so that we can turn to the table conversations, because you all have your work to do right now. So we're going to give the work back to you. Thank you.